off. That'd be great, Tony.
I'm going to do a massive warm welcome, a big international welcome to our community. And this is part of Patrick. Where's Patrick's wonderful invention, which is the Biotech Gate Digital Forum. And one of the things that we're keen to do is to engage, entertain, and inform. And Coffee Buddies was set up some time ago as a forum for life science professionals to really be in dialogue and build strong relationships, which we know will give business. It's all about relationships. And as a part of that, as a part of Coffee Buddies, is all about when you go to a conference, isn't it interesting how you nearly always stand in front of someone in a coffee queue and you get a contact? And all of us who are in the digital world, we're trying systematic ways of meeting customers, but boy, serendipity still works. So this is our attempt, following Carl Jung, to put a bit of synchronicity and serendipity into the conference, and we're delighted to do that. Our format today is we have a sponsor, a partner in Phil from MSD, which I'm delighted to have Phil, and I welcome Phil, and we'll talk a little bit about what MSD is doing. And then after we've done that, we'll be pulling in some questions. Please use the chat room for questions that you'd like to ask Phil, that maybe it's a bit hard to do face to face, but you've got a chance now. You've got Phil in your sights in a way that maybe you wouldn't get him in your sights so easily in a conference. We've got Phil, he'll answer your question through the chat room. My friend Graham will curate, and then we're going to do a bit of random getting to know you meeting where we just spin a few people into different rooms and again put a bit more serendipity in and see who you can talk. And even today we've seen people are connecting and businesses flowing. So can I welcome a big warm welcome to my friend Phil from MSD, who's going to give us a couple of slides on where he thinks MSD is going and what's its current if you like, vibration in the life science scene at the moment. Phil.
And I would like to interject just quickly. It'd be great to find out a little bit about Phil, your background first, and we'll take it from there.
So Phil, tell us about you. Who are you?
Great, thank you, Tony, and thank you, Graham. And I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about what we're doing at MSD, and I look forward to the rest of the format also afterwards. So firstly, a little bit about me. I head up business development for Europe and the Middle East for MSD, or Merck & Co, as we're known in the US and Canada. We are split in a business development capacity on a geographical basis. So I've got a team out of London that covers Europe and the Middle East. And our primary role is looking for opportunities to augment our pipeline across all therapy areas. I've been at MSD about 3.5 years now. And before that, I was in cancer research technology, a cancer company, biotech company, and part of Cancer Research UK, a charity in the UK, and a number of biotechs before that. I joined MSD 3.5 years ago, really because I'd been selling in to pharma for most of my career and in small companies most of my career. And unlike a lot of people who have done it the other way, I started small and then went big. But I joined to get experience on the other side of the table from a BD perspective, and also to get exposure to late stage development and commercialization. Most of my career has been in discovery and early development. So the MSD opportunity gave me a chance to at least be exposed to, as I say, late development and commercialization. And
very good, and we like that, Phil, because you're obviously empathetic to small companies trying to find their way into the big pharma company, which are always admired and sometimes feared a little.
Absolutely empathetic, understand what it takes. Also, I think probably know many of the tricks that are involved.
Very good. So maybe you could show a couple of slides and we'll ask a few questions.
Yeah. So I've got a few slides here. I'll perhaps pause on just some individual slides rather than talk through all of them. if I can just get this to work. Yeah, so we're a public company. I just need to flash that forward-looking statement up for you. As I said, we're Merck & Co. in the US and Canada, and MSD outside. Many of you will be familiar with us as an organization. Our primary business is medicines, a legacy in vaccines, biologics, led by Keytruda, and of course a significant animal health business. We invest nearly 10 billion of our revenues into R&D, so R&D is a really important part of what we do. This slide illustrates the legacy a bit more. Just pause to say a long history, a lot of developments in antibiotics, biologics, but also more broadly in healthcare. 2019, we with international organizations developed an Ebola vaccine. Just an example of some of the stuff we're doing outside pure commercial pharmaceuticals. Oncology is a significant part of our business. Best perhaps illustrated here, our foundation oncology program, Keytruda, pembrolizumab, PD-1 antibody. We've supplemented that in recent years with a number of partnerships with AstraZeneca on Lynparza, Lenvima, a number of acquisitions, and now have a very broad pipeline of in-house early stage programs, but also partnerships that have broadened our oncology activity.
I mean, Phil, I had the benefit of talking to you a little bit earlier, and I mean, I think you were saying you're a very data-driven company, and I suppose my question to you is that you know, the famous valley of death, you know, where people would love to do all those data experiments that have got no money. And I mean, you know, one of the questions is how much innovation is lost because they can't quite get the big enough financing to get interesting enough for somebody like you to look at.
It does become a challenge, Tony. Sometimes I see stuff that's lost because it's fallen a bit behind others. So that's, you know, the competitive situation, I guess. And oncology is a good example of that, where there's a lot of people working in the area. So speed is important. That's in part finance, as you say, or lack of finance. But collecting the right data is really important. And just one quick illustration of one of the things we sometimes see is a very strong focus on driving chemistry forward. Of course, we want to get a molecule, and you can say a molecule generates the value, but that's driven forward without filling in the biology gaps. So, you know, what's the target? What's the mechanism? How does this molecule engage the target? What's the data that illustrates the mechanism of action? And that's probably you know, in broad brush terms, the key thing that turns us on or turns us off to an opportunity is that data that illustrates also, the mechanism of action.
You also have an incredibly important role in teaching, really, because you are it's only when you meet somebody of the pedigree of a big company that you get laid out in front of you what you should do. And in a small company, often you don't know what to do. You've got advisors, but there's a big role in big companies teaching small companies what to do. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I see it as an important part of what my team does, to the extent that we can illustrate to people what we're looking for and why it's important. But actually, pleasingly, I'm a relatively newcomer to MSD, but pleasingly, my scientific colleagues are also very happy to participate in talking about, you know, what's relevant data, what do we look for, and how we want to see that data generated. So we do take that role seriously as part of what we do in the broader life sciences community.
And I mean, just one question, as if you want to call me an old drug hunter. One of the things, well, not old in years, but just years of experience, is this idea of, you know, is it do you sense that it's more difficult for people to connect with you than it has been, or is it getting to the is it very much this thing about how do you get connected to someone like you to take it seriously? Because what people hate is just sending a pitch deck. They really want to sell it to you. So is things change, Phil, or is it just the way it is that you have to have heavily processed systems to connect you?
I would say my sense is it's quite a bit less process driven than it used to be. Having said that, Tony, once you get into a conversation and we start to get serious about an opportunity or a discussion we're having, then you start to bring in more people and a bit more process. And sometimes it takes time takes a while to get time in diaries and things for a presentation. You want to bring the right group of people on to a presentation, so that probably feels a bit process driven. But equal at the other end, we were talking before we started about the serendipity opportunities and bumping into people in coffee queues and things, and those sorts of conversations actually I miss, of course, right now, because we're not going to conferences and not having that opportunity to bump into people. And those are still some of the most significant opportunities that I come across, alongside the formal partnering and other sorts of opportunities.
One question, Phil, that intrigues me is bias. Is when a scientific team, there's clearly a lot of bias in VCs. Because there's a lot of fashion-driven sort of interest. Do you think a lot about bias? About is this about an idea, a creative idea? Just because there's some hooks that, when I was at Roche, for example, for many years, there were people who were obsessed about certain pathways. And when I sold a business to Biovitrum, they were obsessed about leptin. So fortunately, I found them, but they had a particular interest in that area. So I'm just intrigued by that, as because you don't, in the end, when you run even a big pharma company, there's not that many people involved, really.
No, that's true. And of course it comes down ultimately, I think, Tony, to people at the end of the day, and to data. And you're pushing on an open door if it's an opportunity in an area that someone is more familiar with, and then the data looks good, versus an opportunity that is less well known to a number of people in the organization. We try to take that bias out and be consistent around looking at what the data tells us.
Yeah.
And we will wait on something that might be considered hot because we can't see the right data. The right data is not there yet. Even if the trend is, everybody's moving into this area.
Yeah.
Just want to highlight we're 20 past at the moment.
I knew that we wouldn't have a lot of time, Phil. but these are the questions I think everybody wants to ask. Maybe a couple. One of the things I just wanted to cover before we finish is MRL. Most people know MSD, but I don't know whether everyone. I know it well because of Peter Dudek, but I'm just intrigued. Can you say a little bit about your relationship to MRL?
Yeah. Can I just comment on a couple of other things and then come to that slide and then talk to that, Tony? So I just wanted to illustrate that our research and business development organization has been changing. We've now got a lot of our research activities in Cambridge, South San Francisco, our new operation there. But also, as certainly the Europeans would have seen, we've just announced a big new facility and plans in London near King's Cross. We're both a research organization as well as teams like myself. So our research is being based in, you could say, hotspots of academia, biotech, and investment.
And I have to ask, because it's pertinent, is COVID having an effect on that? you know, because it's like, I get the feeling a lot of companies are, I mean, for example, Cancer Research UK, which I know you worked with, I mean, they've all moved to an urban environment because it's very good for talent, for hubness. But I'm just intrigued with COVID now coming in, Phil. Is that jarred that philosophy, or it made people reflect?
In relation to the London investment, of course, we had Brexit and now COVID, and we've reflected on both those situations and decided to continue with our plans to have a facility near King's Cross. And it's still based on the fact that there's some significant research institutes very close by, the Crick, UCL, Imperial, King's, etc., in our neck of the woods. And those fundamentals, as well as transport to Cambridge, Oxford, Europe, those fundamentals are still there, and we think they'll be there in the future. And our talent in laboratories will be, a lot of young scientists, postdocs, which we still believe will want to be, centrally located or working centrally. But the key is the co-location to those research institutes.
No, I've got it, my friend. Sorry about the time. Time is whizzing. Maybe one or two last points.
Just one of the points I wanted to make is we're still open for business, and you will have seen some of the announcements we've made on deals, but this is stuff we've done. Quite a number of these deals are actually 2020 deals, so we haven't stopped doing deals because of COVID. We're just doing them from our kitchen tables these days. A number of things in the COVID space, 2 vaccines and an antiviral, and a number of academic collaborations and partnerships to understand SARS-CoV-2. That's my team. Let me get to this one, MRLV. MRLV is our venture arm, invests in discovery to IND therapeutics, opportunities and companies. They're part of the business development organization. We work very, very closely with these guys. And they're a strategic investor, like a number of others, investing up to about 15 million over the life of a company. Pretty typical sort of investment conditions. There's a number of the investments they've done recently. Nicely, a number of IPOs from earlier investments. And the team is here. As you said, Tony, Peter Dudak is originally from Europe. Rez is based in San Francisco. Christine, Diana, and Olga are based in Boston. But we will invest from opportunities from anywhere globally.
Fantastic, Phil. You're a superstar. Let me just give you a round of applause, which I think you deserve. So let's give you a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil, for coming, and we look forward to talking again, because I mean, I think a lot of us admire MSD, and but we're always keen to know where it's going and find a way to get in the door. It's always getting in the door. Graham, we're going to do a bit of moving around, but is there any questions? Did we get anything in the chat room?
Nothing in the chat room. If anybody's got any quick questions now, you can raise your hands, or just speak out aloud.
Any quick question? If not, we'll move into the queuing up in the coffee for the coffee, and you might bump into somebody you've never known before. So
yeah, we can.
Move on.
We're on time for the breakout session.